whatever the religion.
Ms. Royale, we heard earlier from Ken Follett, who studied the construction of these buildings, that that what can happen in a fire like this is that the roof collapses into the building. Yes. Do you think that is why this blaze spread so quickly and so ferociously?
It's a good explanation. Right, it's a good explanation.
Ségolène Royale there, speaking to my colleagues Catty Kay and Matthew Price. Well, this is an 850-year-old building. The art, the artefacts, the religion icons that are within it are just absolutely priceless. We can speak to Dr. Massimo Faggioli, who's in Philadelphia, Professor of Historical Theology at Villanova University. Where do you start? I mentioned briefly the Crown of Thorns, but with a building that has seen so much history, what are the main artefacts that you think are just we need to talk about?
Well, in churches like this, there are paintings, there are books, they have an archive usually. There are relics that, by definition, cannot be rebuilt, cannot be replicated. But a cathedral in a Catholic tradition is a place where there are abundant events that happen, because Catholicism is a very bodily, physically, it has to be touchable. It's very important, the sense of smell, objects that needs to be passed on. And so the loss is beyond the building, is what's inside and what was possible inside with those objects.
And when it comes to Notre Dame, what objects would you believe are the most important? I mean, I don't even know where to begin. It's such a historical building, but the objects that really you hope had been carried out before the fire took hold so devastatingly.
The most important relic seems to be the Crown of Thorns, which is the relic that is believed to be the crown that was put on Jesus' head during Passion. It doesn't really matter if that was really the crown that Jesus had on his head. It's what Catholics believe. And so that is, I believe, the most important relic that it seems from the latest news has been saved. That is, it has symbolically high value, especially because it is Holy Week.
Of course, and of course we've just had Palm Sunday, and we've got Maundy Thursday, we've got Good Friday coming up. For Christians, this is one of the most important times, as well with Christmas, of course, in their religious calendar. A tunic believed to have been worn by St. Louis also is hoped to have been saved. Can you tell us a little bit more about that? Are you aware of that?
Yes, so the Cathedral of Notre Dame has a history that has a lot to do with King Louis IX, also known as Saint Louis, King of France, because the cathedral was completed and it was given as a gift to King Louis IX, and so that having the King of France becoming a saint of the Catholic Church and Notre Dame being associated with that king is quite unique in the history of a national Catholic Church like the French Catholic Church.
And it's not in terms of when we look forward, of course, we're still looking at the devastation. We don't exactly know the state of what is happening inside. But ultimately, if we've got across the worst, and it is possible to rebuild Notre Dame, how does that work in terms of the importance of what happened there? Can you rebuild something like this and it still have the same resonance, meaning religious and historic?
It's a very good question. So every act of rebuilding is always an act of interpretation, how you rebuild. And now Catholics globally are quite divided about what is Catholic art, what Catholic architecture looks like. Secondly, that churches in the Middle Ages were built by the church and by society before you had a secular state. So now President Macron saying we are going to rebuild, it's very important, but if you look at what some Catholics are saying, is that they don't want a secularist president to rebuild Notre Dame, which says something on how complicated symbolically this is, because some are saying if Macron rebuilds this church, it will be Macron's church or the Republic's church. It will not be a church of the Catholic Church. So it is symbolically very complicated. The financial issue is minor compared to how you rebuild. Will it going to be the same symbol of Catholicism as it has been for 9 centuries, or something else? That has to do with how France believes this church will be in his history and in his life from now on, much more than what it has been in the previous 9 centuries.
So this is, I appreciate it is such a complicated question, but we just saw, even yesterday we were talking about the restoration of the private chambers of Marie Antoinette, and that was it's a huge expense, 3 years of restoration, and we saw to their full splendour. And we also saw in Rome the opening up of the marble stairs that Christ is believed to have walked up along. So is this a question about perhaps the Vatican paying for this? You say it's not a question of money, but ultimately somebody is going to have to come in and put a new roof on. How does that work?
Well, as a Catholic historian of the Catholic Church, let me tell you that money never goes from the Vatican, it usually goes to the Vatican. So here I don't expect the Vatican to pay for this. There will be some kind of contribution symbolically or in terms of expertise, but the money I don't think will come from the Vatican or from Rome. I expect also because of the particular relationship between French Catholicism and the French state, it will be French money of the French taxpayers. But this is something new. Again, because when all these cathedrals were built, there was no taxpayers' money that was giving money to a secular state. So this may sound a very peripheral issue for us, but for some kind of Catholics, they feel that there will be some kind of violence done upon the church if it's rebuilt by the secular state. This fire says something about the state of the Catholic Church globally now, but I believe that the act of rebuilding will say even more about the situation of the Catholic Church today.
A fascinating point on which to end it. Professor Massimo Faggioli, a professor of historical theology, thank you so much for joining us and bringing us to yet just even more questions when it comes to something so sensitive. Thank you so much for your time.
Thank you.